So my name's Meriel, and I'd like to welcome all of you watching and listening to the Childless Circle, which is a project that Yvonne and I came up with several months ago, where we wanted to speak to each other about our experiences of unwanted childlessness, go off separately and speak to several other people who've also experienced unwanted childlessness, and then come back together at the end and speak to each other again about what it was like, and hence the Childless Circle. So this is our first meeting together, which is being recorded, about this project. And we're delighted to welcome you to the Childless Circle. We're going to just briefly introduce ourselves, and then we're going to talk to each other about some of the questions that we hope to be asking the participants in this project. So as I said, my name's Meriel. I'm a 46-year-old woman living on the south coast of the UK, and I had a long and varied journey through childlessness, starting off with trying to have a baby, then realising that probably wasn't going to work, trying to adopt, meeting someone, trying to have a baby again. That didn't work because of fertility issues, and then going back to adoption. When I finally, 2.5 years into that process, I got turned down for adoption, and by that time I realised that that was the end of my journey towards having children. So that, in a nutshell, is why I've ended up where I am today.
So I'm Yvonne, Yvonne J or Yvonne John, depending on how you want to call me. I am 48 and married. I got married at 39, not expecting to have children. I think mainly because of the decisions I'd made in my past and having 2 terminations in my 20s. I just felt that my time, my decisions had been made and my time had passed. So I entered a marriage with my husband, believing it was just the 2 of us. And a year into the marriage, because it was going so great, I decided that I really wanted to try to have a child, and I didn't want to hit menopause not having have tried. So we did. My husband agreed. So we spent 3 years trying to conceive naturally, and I found it the hardest 3 years of my life, because you think you just have sex and you get pregnant. No one tells you there could be problems, and no one actually talks about fertility. So it's something that I didn't have a concept of in my mind. So we had fertility investigations, and at 44 I was told that I had unexplained infertility, and then that just sent me into this spiral of grief. And it was really difficult. So now, how many years on? 4 or 5 years on, I have been working with Gateway Women. I've done the Plan B mentorship program and done a lot of grief work, and now do a lot of talking and interviews around childlessness and really focusing on the women of colour's experience, because it's one of the things I have found is that women of colour don't talk. Very cultural thing, but we don't talk, and therefore we keep it all bottled up and we don't get the help we need. So I'm very passionate about getting that message out and open it up so other women have a platform and an avenue to get the help they need and to speak as well.
Absolutely, that sounds amazing. It's interesting that we've both found ourselves using our experience to support other women. Obviously you're doing it through lecturing and talking, and through your work with Gateway Women. And I've set up a counselling practice which is specifically supporting not just childless women but childless men as well, focusing on providing counselling that's appropriate to childless people, because I've had counselling in the past where I've been more traumatised by things the counsellor said to me than I've actually been able to get support, because you still get people saying things like, well, have you thought about? And I go, no, I've been turned down for adoption. No, well, no, I was going to ask if you thought about fostering. No, I can't adopt and I can't foster, so please don't ask me that. So yeah, even in the counselling room, there are massive insensitivities from the counsellors. So yeah, it's really important to provide really sensitive counselling. Childlessness for whatever reason.
Yeah, I can see how important that is as well. I mean, I'm shocked because I've heard other women who've gone to counsellors and have had experiences around where the counsellor is asking them these questions that are very triggering, and quite stupid really, because you're you want help to deal with the grief, you're not going to them to be fixed or for them to provide a solution that you could never possibly thought about yourself. You know, we get enough of that outside of counselling.
You don't expect it to happen in the
Yeah, no, you don't. And you're expecting them to have the empathy and the sensitivity around it. So it is really interesting to hear that you've experienced that as well.
The situation where counsellors have empathy breakdowns, as well as, I mean, counsellors are ordinary people, obviously.
Yeah.
As well as everybody else. I mean, I had a counsellor say to me, she had 2 children, and I went to her for support with grief after the adoption process ended. She said, "Oh, I understand how you feel, because it was really hard for me to have my 2 children." And I was like, "Okay, no, I don't think you do." Because you've got children.
Yes.
And out that on top of my infertility, I'm also now unable to adopt.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you do, actually.
No. Yeah. I mean, you're being rejected, you know, all the way along this process. And yeah, she has children. You know, I mean, I've had conversations with mothers who have been able to empathise because they found it hard, but they knew with themselves that that's as far as they could empathise with me.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I do like it when people try and put themselves in your shoes when actually they're not even close to that.
Absolutely. So I think having a counsellor who gets childlessness because he or she have experienced it themselves just means that those bingos aren't going to happen. There's a bottom line of understanding with me and my clients. I don't talk about my journey through childlessness because it's their time and it's about them. But they know that I don't have children, and they know that I've grieved about it, and they know that I've come out the other side. And I think all of that makes, hopefully, for them, for my clients, for a better counselling experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. You know, it is important to find the right counsellor, and it's really important to find one that understands grief, for one, because not all of them actually have experience with dealing with grief or counselling people through grief, and also the childlessness aspect. I think that's another layer that it's really helpful to have or to find in a counsellor. So I can imagine how much help that is to these women you're supporting.
Definitely. And I think it's also important, as you said, to pick up on people who have had different experiences because of their cultural background. Because as you said, Black women or women of colour don't necessarily talk to each other. It gets shoved down, which is really unhealthy.
Do you know the amount of time, I mean, it is, I go back and talk to my family now, you know, older generations, trying to understand, like, why didn't we really talk? Why didn't you talk about this? Why didn't you say that? You know, there's a lot of, we just got on with it. And there's a real emphasis around, don't bring shame on the family, and don't talk about your problems outside, because you're supposed to, it's a secret. I don't know why it's such a secret, but I don't, you know, I wonder if there's a form of seeing themselves as weak as well by admitting there's a problem or you're going through something. You know, I know for myself, sometimes it's, you kind of wonder how people are seeing you because you're allowing yourself to be that vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, also at the same time, when I get up and speak, when I've gone to events and told my story, the amount of women that come up to me and say thank you, Black women, because it's usually, I mean, I do both. I have spoken in both forms, with white people, with a mixed crowd, with Black people, but especially whatever crowd it is, if there's a Black woman in there, guaranteed that Black woman will come and talk to me and say thank you. You know, it could be my story or the problems that they faced with their own childless journey that actually they've never had the opportunity to talk about. You know, even their husbands have left them, or their families treat them differently, but we don't have a place to talk about that.
No, and that's really important. And it's something that I, you know, coming from a white background, struggle to understand, because I have shame for all sorts of reasons. I have shame for being public, you know, being turned down for adoption, which was very shameful. But I don't have that, I can't talk about it. Which would, I mean, I do struggle to talk about it with my friends who've got children, but I don't struggle to talk about it in general. And I think that is a unique and really different perspective. That I think it's fantastic that women of colour are leading the way. Making it possible, hopefully, for more people to come and talk about it. And as I say, it's great that people are coming up to you at talks and saying that could have been my story. Hopefully that feels really liberating for them.
Do you know, you can see the joy at being able to say that in themselves. And, you know, I know, and I'll say this to people, I know not everyone's going to do what I do, and they're not going to be as public or as vocal as I am.
Yeah.
But to be able to own it for themselves and to tell a friend or a family member is huge. Absolutely. Especially when you've held it inside for so long. So, you know, it's just such a joy, and it's so wonderful to watch these women kind of be freed. Yeah. You know, break free from all those shackles, and they can just go, me too.
Yeah. And that's so important. Having the opportunity to be able to say, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that's deeply moving when that happens. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that you're running specific workshops now for women of colour around childlessness.
Yeah, well, I've been talking to Jodie Day, founder of Gateway Women, for those of you who don't know, about the workshops and how we're going to restructure them, because again, we're finding that the uptake for women of colour to come into the workshops isn't there, not the same as they are for other women. Yeah. And women of colour do go to the workshops because I do co-facilitate workshops where we've got a mix of people, and I think in every group I'd say there is at least one woman of colour, but as a collective, as a unique workshop, we're finding that actually there is a struggle to get the women in that room, even though I've had them and it's been such an amazing experience, a very different experience to the mixed groups.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Especially because we're all women of colour, and actually we can say things amongst our own group and know we get it. Whereas if we said it in front of white people or amongst at work or our peers in a mixed setting, people tend to frown and think, oh my God. And they, you know, they don't want to address it. Yeah. And these conversations are important to have. It's, you know, it isn't just about grieving the childlessness, it's about the many layers that stop us from talking, and therefore we're not able to fully grieve it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so reaching out to diverse groups.
Yeah.
And you know, again, that whole being able to say me too.
Yeah, so I'm now looking at other ways to do that. So I'm having some coaching at the moment to develop these ideas, and hopefully, well, my plan is for next year to start running with that and having that platform and that forum where I can then reach more women of colour, and we can have, you know, more open conversations around it.
Yeah, and I think diversity in the world of childlessness is a really important thing. I think one of the things that I'm very keen to do is to reach out to LGBTQ people and to people with disabilities and people who are neurodiverse, because I think those are groups as well where it's really important to reach out to those people.
Yeah, I can really imagine, and I kind of think about my own journey, and I wonder with the LGBT community how much people or society wouldn't expect them to be grieving.
Yeah.
Because, you know, having children is about, well, I say this very loosely, but, you know, we're brought up to believe that having children is about a man and a woman meet, they get married, and then they go off and have children, and that's the only way it can happen. So, you know, when you don't fall in those parameters, all of a sudden, people are thinking, well, you know, I can imagine like a lesbian lady, for example, somebody turning around saying, well, I never thought you'd want one.
Well, yeah, because, you know, how are you even going to do it?
What?
Thinking about one of the presenters of the Great British Bake Off, Sue Perkins. She was diagnosed with a benign brain tumour. That she was infertile. One of the results of this benign brain tumour was infertility, and the consultant said something really tactless to her about being a lesbian, and how it was all right because she was a lesbian. So making the assumption that it didn't really matter that she was infertile. Yeah. Because she was a lesbian anyway. So, you know, when I read her biography, I was horrified by how tactless and unsupportive it was, but also by how it was another, as you say, it's another layer. Another layer of experience, which if you're not necessarily within that group, it's hard to understand the complex layers of experience that might be someone's grief at childlessness.
Yeah, and as you said, I agree, it's so important to have the stories out there, because without the stories we don't learn, and without the learning, how do we change? How do we grow? How does it be different?
Hopefully change and grow as well.
Yeah.
So that there is more empathy. If we could have a more empathic society around and that would, I think, make a big difference
Yeah.
to childless people's well-being.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm assuming that's one reason why we're doing this Childless Circle, to try and hear some of these voices that may not be heard, and to get people's stories out there, so that we're sharing and learning and growing ourselves.
Yeah.
Part of it, I mean, I'm already learning just by listening to you, so it's a fantastic opportunity.
It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I've noticed on my journey, and when I'm talking to people of different races, is that actually there's a lot of commonality in what we're experiencing. So it'd be interesting to see actually how different we are, or not. You know, I know there's different layers because we have cultural experiences, so there's going to be some differences. But is it this wide or is it this wide? You know, and I think it'd be really interesting to see at the end of it actually what we learn.
Interview, won't it, to see what people had in common and what was different.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting to reflect on that.
Yeah.
When the two bits of the circle join back together and we do our final interview in the series, I think we can look back at this interview and say, well, do you remember we said what we're going to learn, what's in common and what's different? And here it is.
Yeah. It's like, there was nothing. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens at the end.
It's going to be great, and I just love the idea that after we finish this interview, we're both going to go off and do our half of the circle, and then it's going to rejoin at the end.
Yeah, I think it was I'm so glad you reached out to me about this idea, because I thought it was so unique, and I got really excited as we kept talking and developing this idea. So yeah, I am so looking forward to see how this works.
So maybe it's now would be a good time to ask each other one of the, at least one, if maybe how we're doing for time, to ask each other one of the questions that we're planning to ask some of our participants. Do you want to start and ask me one?
So I will ask you, what would you say has impacted you the most, or the one thing that you found difficult that impacted you on your ability to grieve?
I think the most difficult thing that impacted my ability to grieve was I kept going through different stages of my childlessness journey. So the first stage of my childlessness journey, I decided I was going to adopt on my own, because I'd been single for longer in my life than I'd been in relationships. So I thought, rather than waiting, I'll try and adopt on my own. So I tried that. And then I met somebody who wanted to have a child with me. So I was like, great, okay, I'll stop the adoption process on my own and I'll focus on having a child with this person, which I did. And I hadn't realised quite how many fertility issues I had. And my partner also had infertility issues as well. So it was just not going to happen. So that I started to grieve then a bit for not being able to have a baby. But I kind of said to myself, it's okay, because that's not my journey. So that's fine. So I don't need to worry about that. That's not my journey. My journey is to adopt. I was going to adopt before, so I'm just going to go back to that dream that I already had. I'm just going to do it with my partner. So it'll be even better, because I'll be adopting with somebody else. Even better than adopting on my own. So I squashed all those feelings down about not being able to have a baby, and I just didn't listen to them. And at the same time, one of my closest friends was pregnant, and that had a massive impact. We talked about getting pregnant together and having our babies together, and then being close friends and playing together. And I knew that wasn't going to happen to me, but I had to watch her getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know that she felt, and still feels a tiny bit, quite resentful that I wasn't able to support her and I wasn't able to be there for her. But that's because I pushed all my grieving down, because I just didn't have the space for it. So my partner and I were going to adopt together, and then my partner decided that he didn't want to. So we broke up. I was like, that's okay, I can adopt on my own. So off I went to try and adopt on my own again, and for various reasons I got turned down. So I think the thing that impacted my grief the most was that I was grieving not having a baby, but I pushed it all down. So I was like, it doesn't matter that I can't have a baby because I'm going to adopt. And then I was turned down for adoption, and I was so ashamed, because I'm a teacher, I was a counsellor working therapeutically with children, and I felt like I'd been told that I was unsuitable to be a mother.
Mm.
How could how could I carry on working with children if I felt like I had a big badge on my forehead that said unsuitable,
Yeah.
and everybody was walking around my hometown, everybody could see it. So I felt really, really ashamed, and shame makes you pull away from people. So I just pulled away from people. So I
Yeah.
think it was the length of the journey and the different stages and the shame that stopped me from grieving. So it did take a while for me to grieve, and partly that journey is still going on, but it's a very low level. You know, I am living. It's a great relief to me to be able to look at my life and go, I'm living a good life. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to get there as well, because you know, the grief, and one thing that women ask me is about, will the grief end? And I'm like, no, it won't. But we get better at managing it, and it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
You know, I still have moments now, but it doesn't hurt as deeply as it did before.
And I think we'd learn to manage it, as you say. We learn to be kinder to ourselves.
It's part of it. Yeah.
I feel sad. I just say to myself, this is a feeling of sadness. It's a normal feeling of sadness. It's totally understandable that I should be feeling this way. I'm just gonna open my heart, look after myself, speak to somebody, and it will pass again.
Yeah, I must say, having self-compassion or exercising self-compassion, lifesaver.
Absolutely.
Really a lifesaver, and it's something I learned on my grief work, on my journey, is that you just need to, and it's giving yourself permission to be there. Because even with, you know, one of the things I've certainly found, especially amongst women of colour, you know, I had an Asian lady in my group when I went through Gateway, and family, especially with, I mean, I think Asians are very particularly like this, but we do see it with the Black community as well. But family is huge. It is huge, and there's, you know, I know a couple of Asian women who are childless, but there's weddings, there's Christmas, there's a lot of things. And it's a big family thing, and there's almost like you can't say no. You're expected to be there, you're expected to join in, you're expected to be happy for them. And it's like, just because I can't be there because it hurts, it doesn't mean I'm not happy. And it's this trying to explain yourself and forcing yourself to go and be around people that you don't want to be around just because it hurts so much. But being able to give yourself permission to say no and know it's okay really helps. You know, my dad asked me if I was going to a family day out that one of his organizations are having. And I said, you know, I went last year, and I said to him, no, I'm not coming this year because it was too painful last year. Sitting there, you know, watching all these families, all the grandparents with their grandkids, or the parents with their kids, and the kids are all running around. And I didn't have anyone to be a part of that. And I really felt like an outsider. It hurt too much. I said, no, I'm not putting myself through that. But I know no matter what people think, I can do that for myself, and it's okay. And that is a big thing.
Yeah, thank goodness that, you know, we do come to a place where we realise that it's okay to practice self-care.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no, and that no is a sentence in itself. We don't need to explain. You just say no. Are you going to that? No.
Yeah.
End of sentence.
Yeah. Yes.
And if someone says why, so you know, I'm just not going.
Yeah.
You know, and I think buffering some of those questions that we get asked is really important. People often like to ask me why I got turned down for adoption, and I say, oh no, that's too complicated for me to talk about, because it's really personal. I don't want to go into that to people I don't know very well. Yeah. So,
but again, it's about managing it, because it's almost like you're managing other people when you're in this situation. You know, so
yeah, definitely. I just wish my journey had been a bit shorter and a bit less complicated, but I think we've all got long, complicated journeys for whatever reason, whatever reasons have brought us to childlessness. We're all long and complicated.
One of the things I've certainly learned for myself is to just allow myself to be in the process. Because I mean, I agree with you, shame will stop you. I mean, I had a lot of that, and that's one of the things that really impacted me on being able to grieve, and because I couldn't talk about it. And I also thought that if people knew what I had done, they wouldn't accept me, they wouldn't allow my grief. They would say to me, you didn't deserve to be a mum because of the decisions you made.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to overcome that. But being able to be in a room with women that actually allowed me to do that, allowed me to say it, allowed me to experience it, and loved me anyway.
Not judge you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was amazing. It was amazing. And then it gives you the strength and the courage to be able to step out of that group and talk. It is a bit of trial and error because you can't do with everyone.
No.
But you get braver at doing it, and if you see actually it's the wrong place, you can just pull it back and kind of shut it down and manage it a lot differently. But what I've learned is that I've allowed myself to experience this because it's part of my experience. The grief is part of this, the hurt, the pain, the horrible stuff is part of it. But without it, I don't know the great joy. And I've found great joy out of being on this road, about allowing myself to feel the pain. It's part and parcel of it. So, you know, and I think it's part of the healing as well, because if you don't allow yourself to experience it, you don't then get any help, and therefore you don't move through it.
It's like, you know, I often say this to people: you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you have to go through it. And there's a I think it's Brené Brown who says you can't selectively numb. If you numb yourself to the painful feelings, you will also numb yourself to the joyful feelings.
I like it.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Brené Brown, and she's fantastic for talking about vulnerability.
Yes.
And openness, and how it's okay to be vulnerable, even in a world that doesn't really support that.
You know, I agree with you. I think there's a lot to be said about allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and society, for many reasons, has told us we shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
And I remember a few years ago, I was at a friend's party, and I sang. I'm not a singer. I don't class myself as a singer, but she'd invited me to sing for her. So I'd sang at this party. And afterwards, people coming up to me, and this lady said to me, "Your strength is in your vulnerability." And I never knew what she meant by this. It baffled me, but I wrote it down, and I kept this close to me.
Wow.
And years later, I now understand what she means, because magic happens. Magic has happened because actually I allowed myself to be open, and you have richer conversations.
And it gives permission for other people to be open, and then you create intimacy. Intimacy, there is healing, I think.
I agree. I completely agree.
You know, like I'll never forget going on my Reignite workshop back in, I think it was 2013, and this is before I'd been turned down for adoption. And the first part of the Reignite workshop, as you'll know, is where we all told our stories. And just to be with a room of people who, even though we'd all had different experiences, but people were nodding and smiling. And I was just like, oh, thank goodness.
You're not alone.
Not alone.
Yeah.
The best days of my life.
Yeah. And it's normal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay to be feeling this.
I remember saying to a friend of mine when I was struggling to have a baby, and I said, this is a friend of mine who's got children, really close friends, somebody I love dearly. I feel that she's like a sister to me. But I said, I feel like you and everybody else, all my friends with children, have all gone to a country I'm not allowed to go to, and I'll never be allowed to go to it, and I'll never know what it's like. And you'll always be on the other shore, and I'll always be on the shore. And that's how it felt. Like everybody would move to this other country, and I was by myself, you know. But now I've got people who get it.
Yes.
And they're my friends. I haven't lost touch with any of my friends with children, which really is really important to me. But I've also made a whole load of new friends, and that's made my life so much easier. Yeah,
I think that is one of the scariest things, and I can identify with that myself, about losing your friends. And I know women who have lost their friends through this, being on this journey. It does happen, and what we do is we try and hold on to that. And I think that's part of it being hard to grieve as well, because you don't want it to change. But you can see it is, because it's right in front of you. I worried so much that I would lose my friends, and in a way it did change, because I think naturally it will. You can't stop that, because we're in different places. But having the group really helped me to kind of stabilize it all. because I had the place, as you said, the place where everyone understood. And then I could go to them for other things and I could enjoy other parts of my life with them because they weren't the be all and end all anymore. So yeah, it just made it a lot easier.
Definitely. And my friends who've got children, I think as their children get older, they don't just want to talk about their children anyway. So, you know, a lot of our conversations are still what they always were, because you know their kids are getting older and becoming more independent. So thank goodness, you know, we still talking about the same things that we've always talked about, and it's no longer as painful for me to talk about their kids with them anyway, because of the healing I've done, you know, and because I am genuinely fond of their children. I do enjoy being with them. You know,
yes, we still like kids.
Therapeutically with children. I do like being with children.
Well, that's the other thing. The misconception that we must all hate kids. Yeah. It's like,
I couldn't do my job, you know, which involves teaching. If I didn't enjoy being with children, which I do genuinely. I do enjoy them, and I'm quite glad to leave them back at school when I come home. At the end of the day, but I think all teachers feel that whether they've got kids or not.
I'm sure.
Definitely. So, what would you say to other childless people based on what you know now? Being a bit. The other question I was wondering is what's helped you the most. So you can go with either of those, or they may.
So, I mean, what helped me the most was actually being able to talk about it and being in a place where people understood and accepted it all. Because I think, especially when we feel shame, we hide bits of it. So we'll give you a little bit because we think that might be okay, or they might be able to handle that bit. But I'm going to keep this bit because that bit is too tough.
Absolutely.
So being in that environment where actually all of it could be there, I could see it all, I could work through it all, really helped. Being around people who accepted as well really helped. So it really helped to shape my conversations and shaped how I managed it outside of that group as well. What I would say to other women is reach out. We both know how difficult and how isolating this journey is, or it can be. And to just get to people who can, and there are women who are reaching out, but they're not necessarily reaching out to the right people. So they might try it with their friends and families and it doesn't go according to plan, so they shut down because they think no one understands. But actually there is a group of women, we've come through Gateway, there is a group of women that do get it. So I would just say reach out and talk. Do not stay on your own. Find someone, find the tribe.
Because, you know, Gateway Women, I mean, the first thing about Gateway Women is it's now becoming more and more, it's becoming an international organisation. So more and more there. I think the first meetup is happening in Israel soon. But also there's the Gateway Women website and the Gateway Women forum, where even if you do live somewhere where there isn't an actual face-to-face meetup group or there isn't a Reignite course, you can still go on the forum. Other women in the virtual world. Which is not quite the same, but it's still pretty good. So,
it is.
Women are out there.
This is it.
So I totally agree with you about reaching out. I think that's absolutely key. We must be coming up to half an hour.
We are 33 minutes.
Oh, we've done really well. Given that there is a lot to say on this topic.
There is.
So I'd say, I guess what's going to happen now is that we're going to go off and interview 3 or 4 people from hopefully from all different walks of life. With different experiences. We're going to try and make it as diverse a group as possible, so that we're reaching the parts that maybe, you know, not always being as heard, you know, hearing voices that may not have been heard. And then we're going to come back together and we're going to reflect on what this experience has been like.
I am so looking forward to meeting back up with you, Meriel, and seeing what we've both learned on our journeys.
Hopefully, definitely we'll have met some wonderful people. And we'll have heard some amazing stories.
I'm really excited. I've got a lovely lineup, so I'm really excited to talking to my group of women, and I'm equally excited to hear back from yours. So,
so thank you to everybody for listening, and please listen in to our interviews that we're going to do as part of the Childless Circle, and then please do come and check in with us. at the end, and we'll reflect on the whole process.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Hi, I'm really excited that you were able to join me and Meriel for our Childless Circle interviews. You have just finished watching the first interview that we did when we started the project. It's been pretty much a year on and we've come to the end. So we have recorded our closing video, which you can continue to watch, and it will follow shortly after this clip. As mentioned, we have interviewed a series of people both, and I will give you the links to both our series of interviews, and you can choose to stop now and just click on the links and follow each one of our series of interviews, or you can finish to the end and then come back in and watch the videos individually. I pieced them all together so that you can go through one after the other. You can go through them at your leisure. Whatever works for you, feel free to just join us as and when suits you. But thank you for joining us, and I hope you get as much out of this as we did for doing them.
So here we are at the end of the Childless Circle. We've both been off and met some incredible people and spoken to them. And I think we're both really, really grateful to our interviewees who've been fantastic, very generous in sharing their time and sharing their thoughts and ideas about childlessness with us. And now we're at the end. The Childless Circle is being joined up again. Yvonne and I started it, and we're here to finish it. And I think it's really important for us both to acknowledge what a different world this is from where we were at the beginning, how much has changed for people internationally. The world's a different place. And lots of us have been through personal changes, either because of the pandemic or things that would have happened anyway. So yeah, it feels really important to start off by saying that we're in a very different place to we were when we started this.
Absolutely. And, just thinking about what you just said, it's taken us pretty much a year on this journey, on doing.
Yeah.
And it's been an exciting time. And, sitting here today and thinking about what's happened even in the last 6 months, it's something that we couldn't have imagined or even planned for.
Yeah.
Something we couldn't have, we certainly didn't fathom would be the case when we started this project. And, since then, even since March, so much has happened that, even our lives in the last, how many months? 6-8 months has so much. So it's really great to actually sit here with you and just touch base again, reconnect on where we're at now and actually how doing the interviews were and the time from the first interview we had together, even the first call when you said, let's do the project, to the interview, and then to now,
I know.
much has even changed for us.
Yes, things have changed a lot. And the project has got bigger and bigger in a way, because I remember when I first thought about it, I was just a bit like, oh, well, it'd be really good if I wrote a blog for Yvonne's website and she wrote a blog for my website. That would be great, And then suddenly it became, no, that's not enough. Let's actually go out and meet some really all the meetings have happened online since before COVID, but let's go out and meet some really incredible childless people and talk to them and find out how they're living their lives. And that's made so the project has just got bigger and bigger in a way, and more expansive, which was really exciting. And also I think we were both very keen that we wanted there to be an element of diversity in the people that we were talking to, so that we included diverse people who were childless into the interviews. So we were really getting a sense of the range of experiences, not keeping it narrow, but again, very expansive. So yeah, the project did get bigger and bigger in a way, and hopefully we've managed to include lots of different kinds of people, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, one of the great things for me as well is as well as connecting with people who I already knew in my Women of Colour circle, but also reaching out to some people like Sophia and Ruth, who I had never spoken to before. I'd come across them on videos, on interviews that they had done with JD Day, and I think it was something with yourself on Diversity Day last year, and it gave me the opportunity to actually reach out to some new people, make new connections, and have different conversations again. And it was really great connecting with them. You know, Ruth being Jewish, Sophia being Sikh, Asian, and getting different perspectives other than what I my normal conversations with Black women. And so it was great getting different perspectives and hearing different voices on this platform as well.
I think that's one of the great strengths of the work that we've done, is it has been so very diverse. And I think that's something that's becoming more and more important in thinking about childlessness, is realizing what a vast network of different experiences there are, and how we need to really be very inclusive in what we're presenting as childless people, so that nobody feels excluded, no one feels like I can't be part of that group. We're showing people this range of experience, this diversity of experience, so people can see, well, yeah, there is a place for me there. I can go and share my experiences. I can get support. I can realise that there are other people like me, which does make people hopefully feel less alone.
Yeah. Do you know, actually, just thinking about what you've said, you know, one of the significant moments especially during the pandemic, was Black Lives Matter, you know, the killing of what happened with the Black Lives Matters movement. And for me personally, it was the realization of not actually having a space to talk about race. You know, I can talk about it with my friends, yes. It's not to say we talk about it all the time, because we don't. But I think because it mattered, and when it matters, and when you're going through something, you want to be able to say, hang on, I feel this is going on for me, and I know you want someone to listen and acknowledge it. And one thing I realized was how little I am able to talk about race or the systemic racism that I encounter on a regular basis. And the importance of, as you said, having the Childless Circles interviews really gave us that opportunity, and gave other women the opportunity to voice things, and men as well, because you had Dr. Robin Hadley on your interviews. But it was really good to have that, include that male voice as well. Exactly, because I said, you know, I wanted to find a man of colour, but I just couldn't. And were able to come and have conversations with me. But as you said, creating that space, and having that space to allow the conversations, and to allow whatever needs to be said to be said, is such a valuable thing. And I think it's something that, you know, I know women and all the interviewees, and I could see from your stream of people who are in as well, we're really grateful to have that conversation, to be able to give a voice to their experiences. And likewise, it will give other people a voice, the ability to raise their voices, and permission to tell their stories when they feel ready to do so as well. Absolutely. So important that people feel seen, and that there is a space for them at the table. There is a place for them at the table, and that's so important. And as you say, where they can say whatever needs to be said, where there is no censorship, where if there's something important that needs to be said, it needs to be said, it needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be heard. And that listening and hearing is a really, really important thing. I can't emphasize that enough, how, you know, for example, in Black Lives Matter, how important it is for people like me, for white people, to be able to listen and hear and go, I honour your experience as you've seen it, not as I think it should be, or other people think it should be, as you have seen it. This is so true. It's so true. I think, you know, no matter who we are, regardless of race, colour, sexuality, whatever it is, that's what we all want. It really is what we all want. I know for myself, I can see other people getting it. And I'm not saying it's easy, because we know as childless women it isn't easy. But I feel that there are things that people are more readily able to hear than there are about other stuff, and race is one of them. So, you know, I'm grateful that we were able to come together and have this conversation. And I mean, we've had a lot of conversations offline as well. And the richness around that, because we can talk about anything and everything. It's just so great. And I think if we get to a place, if we can be in a place of It is what it is. So forget rights, wrongs.
Yeah.
It should be this, it should be that. It is what it is. This is what's happened, and we can talk around that, which is what we've done. It's such a beautiful, enlightening, enriching experience.
Absolutely, completely agree. And I think it's great that within ourselves we encompass a lot of diversity. You know, I might be a white woman, I'm a white queer woman with a hidden disability that most people can't see, and none of those things are obvious by looking at me, but yet they're all really important parts to my identity. And I'm also a cisgender woman, and one of the things I really wanted to find was someone. I wanted to talk to a trans or non-binary childless person and include their story, and it was really hard to find someone. So I would actually say, if there is a trans non-binary childless person out there who'd really like to share their story, I'd really like to hear it and really like to talk to that person about their experience of childlessness. And the other thing I struggled was to find somebody with a disability who I could talk to. So again, I'm giving a shout out now. If there is anybody out there who has a disability and is childless and hasn't been able to tell their story, again, I'd really like to hear from you. And you mentioned how hard it was to find a person of colour who's a man to talk about their experience of childlessness.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you know, anyone knows of any Black, Asian men of colour who like to have this conversation, it'd be great actually to get their voices out there too. And I know there are some around, because there are people doing their stuff, but if anyone's willing and able to have a conversation with me about it, absolutely would more than be happy to hear from you.
Yeah, because we were able to include lots of really diverse voices, but there's always a bit further that we can go. In again, the importance of listening and making sure there's a space at the table for people. There's always another step further that I think we can go. And in a way, although the Childless Circle is in this iteration, in this form, is coming to an end, it may be that it reappears in other ways.
No, it's just opening another door.
Yeah.
One chapter of a huge book.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in a post-COVID world where everything is very different.
Yes.
Where, you know, BAME people seem to have been more adversely affected by COVID than white people. And that's a frightening story. Again, that happening alongside Black Lives Matter, which we're still seeing incidences of racist violence from police towards people of colour. That's just seems to be going on, which is terrifying. Actually,
it is. It's. I mean, it's sad. It's one of those situations that, you know, I'm not surprised at, because it's there. It's our lives. It's been our lives for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think COVID and social media has allowed these stories to be heard more readily, more available to see it. But I watch it now and think about all the stuff that happened when it wasn't being filmed. You know, pre-social media, pre our ability to kind of shout out and make things, you know, bring it to a platform, bring it to the forefront. And we couldn't do that before. So, you know, it's also honouring all the stuff that's happened in the past and all those lives that have been affected by it, that we can now, you know, just bring light to those stories today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to use the tools that we have at our disposal. The fact that we've all got easy access to phone cameras, to ways of getting to YouTube, to other ways, you know, to social media, to get ways of getting these stories told. We can really use those to our advantage. Absolutely. To get these diverse stories, people of colour, LGBTQI plus people, people with disabilities, neurodiverse people, to get these stories out there, people to speak in their own voices, which again is so important. It's not people pontificating about other people, it's people's own voices.
That's right. And as you said, this is one of the great things that we've been able to do. You know, I've been honoured. I was greatly honoured that you contacted me to be a part of this project, and just as, you know, even more honoured that we managed to get it off the ground, and we are here today reflecting on the interviews that we have done.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said at the beginning of Yvonne and my chat today, how we really want to thank all our interviewees so much for their generosity in giving their time to us and speaking to us so honestly about their experiences and so passionately about their experiences. But I also want to give a shout out to Yvonne at this point, because you've done all the editing, which has been amazing and was totally beyond my capability at this time. So it's very important to say that, yes, Yvonne has not only been interviewer, but also editor, which has been fantastic. So all the little graphics and music clips and things that you see have come from Yvonne. So a big thank you for that. But yeah, very much to our interviewees who we approached at various different times. Some of them were people that we knew, and some of them were people that we'd never met and have still not met face to face. Some of them people that we've only met online. And as I say, this was pre-COVID, so we were still meeting these people online. And it's been great to see how many different journeys there are through childlessness, and how many people have so many different ways of coping and of giving meaning to their lives. There is no one way to have meaning in your life after childlessness. And some people have done really big things, like Jessica Hepburn, who's on the channel and was also going to climb Everest, which has been postponed, although she is training again now for Everest, which is fantastic. But for some people, it's very small things that make the difference. It's an attitudinal shift. It's a different way of feeling about ourselves, maybe setting the aspiration that we're going to live without shame. And I think that's so important to acknowledge, that life after childlessness doesn't have to be a massive thing like climbing Everest, although that can be part of your journey. It can be very small ways of changing the way that you think to make life easier and better for you and for the people.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point to make, because I have a lot of respect for Jessica. She's just like Wonder Woman.
She is,
and she will continue to do amazing things.
Yeah.
But being able to own your story is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
As you said, I know one of the things that I found through my interviewees was the reframing of things, and the owning themselves, because there's a lot of shame around being childless. And for various reasons, I think it's so layered. But to be able to put that aside and honour it, because it is an part of the journey, but then to take it into another place that you can reframe it and actually look at it with different eyes.
Yeah.
Huge. And I think, we're all Wonder Women for being able to sit here today, being able to speak, own our stories, speak our stories, share our stories. And the same with all the women listening, all the men listening, all the childless people listening.
Yeah.
You are wonderful people too, because you are able to be in this space to own and take your stories forward in your own way.
Absolutely. So yes, really want to give a shout out to all the childless people out there, whether they're LGBTQI+, men, women, people of colour, people with disabilities, whether visible or not, neurodiverse people. Just giving a big shout out to all of you who are living your childless lives, and saying, that there is a place at the table. We do want to hear people's stories. We do want to listen, and to sort of shine a light up to society and say there's much more diversity than we perhaps originally thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is just such a wonderful place to end.
Yes.
So I think on that note, we will end our final interview on the Circle journey. And I would just like to say a big thank you, not only to all the guests and all the people who said yes to joining us at the table, but to Meriel for creating the table in the first place.
Thank you. Well, it's been a remarkable experience, and I still look forward to seeing where it might go next.
Yes, here's to chapter 2. I love it.
Thank you, Yvonne.